the people I work with aren't trying to build businesses based on new media. They're trying to figure out how to deal with new media. They're afraid of it in large part because of the fear of loss of control. They're concerned about how they can implement it. They know they need to be playing in this sandbox, but they really haven't been able to figure out how to get started. And to a large extent, what they're dealing with is the shiny new toy syndrome. They think they should be blogging, or they think they should be podcasting, but they're not thinking about it strategically. The issue of transparency, which is certainly larger than just social media, affords organizations an opportunity to figure out how to get started with all of this. And when John and I sat down to propose the idea of the book that we have written, and it's coming out in November, by the way, so don't look for us to be hawking the books here at the convention. What really excited me about this was the idea that we could go to organizations and say, the reason to get started strategically in social media is to be more transparent, to open the windows and the doors to your organization and expose your people and your practices, because it's really in your own interests to do this. And then we can start to think about the tactics that we can implement that make the organization more transparent. The worst thing search engine optimization has led to, in my opinion, as an old guy, is that it has eliminated the pun as a headline. Headline writing used to be so much fun. I used to work my very first newspaper job before I got into the corporate side. I was with a small community newspaper, and it was a daily. And the sports editor, who went on to work at the Los Angeles Times and covered the Lakers and became a big deal, but at the Thousand Oaks News Chronicle, he was the news editor, and he was the master of the headline pun. In the next community over, Oxnard, California, which is a coastal community, every year they had a regatta, a yacht regatta, and this year it happened to be on Election Day. And he had a photo, beautiful color photo of all the colorful sails going by, and the headline said, "Heavy boater turnout." The last thing we see happening with imagery is crowdsourcing. It's another one that sort of defies logic, but it happens thanks to the hashtag. The hashtag is driving engagement by inviting people to share their own images and use the hashtag. A couple of examples. One comes from Levi's. They wanted to cast the TV commercials for their new campaign from real people in the public. So with an image they shared on Instagram, they basically said, here's what we want to do with this campaign. I bet you know somebody who would fit that image that we're trying to convey. Share a photo of them, or yourself if it's you, with the hashtag #IamLevi's. And of course you've got Nike, which has made an art of this. Their hashtag at the end of last year was Make It Count, which led to 107,777 references to that hashtag on Instagram, with images that ranged from people just getting a screen capture of their Nike Fuel Band run to images that they shot of people running and adding the Make It Count hashtag to those images, which of course Nike can now tap into for all kinds of marketing. When it comes to tools like Yammer and Chatter, most organizations deploy those using what I've started calling the Godspeed method of technology deployment, which is that IT rolls it out, makes sure that all the bits get where they're supposed to go, and then they make an announcement to the organization. They say, here you go, everybody, Yammer, Godspeed. And the organization's employees kind of have to figure out how or if to use this based on their own personal preferences, rather than establishing any kind of culture of messaging in the organization. There is a report out that says if you took all of the data that will be produced on the World Wide Web this year alone, burn them to DVDs, and stacked those DVDs one on top of the other, they would reach halfway to Mars. Right? We are talking about an extraordinary amount of information that people have to cull through, and search has become inadequate. I mean, as good as Google is, and as much as they keep tightening up the algorithm, you do a search on employee communication strategy, and you're going to end up with hundreds of thousands of pages. And there's no guarantee that what you're looking for will actually be on the homepage. That might be what has been best optimized for search by an agency that was hired, but still not what you're looking for. The problem is not information overload, according to Clay Shirky. The problem is filter failure. Search engines no longer provide an adequate filter to the information you're looking for, and therefore people are starting to turn their attention to curators. These are experts who will cull through all of the various resources that are out there and present you with the best stuff. Andy Carvin works for NPR, and over the years he cultivated resources in Tunisia. He got to know academics and politicians and activists and students. And when the Jasmine Revolution started, he started following their tweets, their blog posts, their YouTube uploads, and he used a product here called Storify, Storify.com, one of many, many, many content curation tools out there. This one happens to be free. It's in public beta. And basically what he has, along the left-hand side, are a list of resources, Google, Twitter, YouTube, and the like. And he'll type in a search term, and when he finds what he's looking for, he drags it into his story and then publishes. So what you end up with here is a timeline of the best, most reliable, most credible stuff from sources that this journalist has already vetted and determined are credible. Our employees can seek subject matter expertise. Have any of you ever used Twitter or LinkedIn to go out and ask a question because you couldn't find the answer captured within the boundaries of your organization chart? Okay. That's where subject matter expertise resides. In fact, research that was done by the Society for New Communication Research and SAP has determined that your decision makers who are able to go out and test ideas with their social media peer groups make better and faster decisions on behalf of the organization.
I thought Shell's presentation was outstanding. He speaks in ordinary words, good words that I can understand without a lot of technical knowledge.
Now you're able to publish all of that content for yourself on social networks and podcasts and video podcasts and blogs and wikis and what have you. All these tools that are available that are free and easy to use, people are taking advantage of. And that's what I mean by the edge. Content is moving around the edge and away from centralized resources. What that means is that this objective that you have to draw visits to your website, to get eyeballs on your content on your organization's website, to try to get people to read your content by luring them to your property on the web is now a huge waste of time.
Are they resorting to sort of sneaky tactics in your view, in any way?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this was entirely ethical and above board. Richard Edelman, the chairman of Edelman Public Relations, on his own blog outlined what he thinks are the requirements for doing something like that. The requirements are, first of all, to disclose, to be utterly transparent about who you are, who your client is, and what the goals of your campaign are, to ask permission to send this information, to disclose any financial relationship with the bloggers, and in this case there was none, right. And finally to present 100% accurate factual information without spin. And in this case, as far as I can tell, all of those requirements were met.
Yeah.
He has so much to offer that you always want more.
Just an amazing story. When I was at Allergan, I was sitting at a table in the cafeteria having lunch, and this was just an overheard conversation where somebody was saying, we needed to run a test. And I could have sworn we owned the equipment that we needed to run this test. But I couldn't find it. I called everyone I could think of, and it turns out we don't own this equipment. So I spent $150,000 having this test done by an outside company. And over at the next table, somebody turned around and said, my department has that equipment. Right? The type of thing that happens in organizations all the time, but if it's out there for everybody to see, it's much more likely that somebody's going to say, I know which department has that equipment. So you tap into the institutional knowledge of the organization.
Shell has a very engaging style, and he's a smart guy, but he doesn't talk down to the audience.
I'm sure the lawyers said, don't say I'm sorry, because I'm sorry is an admission of guilt, and it can mitigate against us later in a court of law. Most organizations, when they're faced with a situation where they should say I'm sorry, end up using that corporatese that the lawyers help us craft. They usually say something like, we regret any inconvenience that this circumstance may have caused you. Of course, if it's particularly egregious, maybe people died, then they say, we deeply regret any inconvenience. Dave Nealman came right out and said, I'm sorry. And social media lets us do this because now it's not the corporation talking, it's Dave.
If you have a laptop open that's networked, if you have an iPhone or some other kind of network phone, if you have an iPad, please feel free to live tweet what you're hearing here. This would be if you disagree with anything I'm saying or don't like the presentation, please use this hashtag. And after you use the hashtag, of course, feel free to add any of your remarks. If you agree with me and you like what you're hearing, then please use this hashtag.
It's amazing that he can keep all that kind of information under one cranium.
Up until recently, most of the web was dominated by websites that institutions built, the typical destination.com, .org type website. Social media has enabled individuals to create content and share it with each other, and there is more than ample evidence to suggest that this is where eyeballs are shifting. During the presentation today, I showed a series of Google Trend charts for some of the big companies that have big presences on the web, the Nikes, the eBays, and over 2 years there's a precipitous decline on every single one of them of page views. And the reason is not because these sites have become boring, it's because the attention of the audience is shifting to social sites. I also showed charts from Google Trends showing social properties like Facebook and Twitter and FriendFeed and Tumblr, and they're all on the rise.
Definitely, I would recommend them to anybody who wants to learn about podcasting or other aspects of communication and technology.
After that, the most trusted person is a frontline employee. And this is one of the reasons, one of many reasons I oppose blocking access to social media among employees, because during a crisis, your employees can be among the most trusted spokespeople your organization has. The least trusted spokespeople in an organization, and this is in general, not just during a crisis, are the CEO and the representatives of the PR department, the official, traditional corporate spokespeople.